There's a pot on the stove. Something's simmering inside it. Potatoes, pumpkin, cabbage, a little gravy. And the neighbors can smell it drifting all the way down the street. It smells like somebody's cooking a big, warm Sunday dinner. On the table, the plates are already set out, and beside each plate, a name. Every single name belongs to a child. They're supposed to come home soon, and sit down, and eat. Nobody has any idea what's really in that pot. I'm Cole, and this is Midnight Files. To understand how a quiet street in Aberdeen, Australia ended up with that pot on the stove, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Before the knives, before the men, before any of it. Catherine Mary Knight was born into a scandal. Her mother, Barbara, was already a married woman, but she started something with a man named Ken Knight, a man who worked right alongside her husband. It was the kind of affair that a small, conservative town does not forgive. And out of that affair came Catherine. She grew up in a home that was broken from the inside out, and from very early on, people around her noticed the same thing. This girl was not like the other kids. She was quick to anger, quick to her fists, and she did not back down from anyone. She left school young. She was done with it. But what she found next, she loved. She got a job at the local slaughterhouse, the abattoir, the killing floor, and where most people would flinch, Catherine leaned in. She was good at it, the cutting, the skinning. She had a real talent for it, and she knew it. She bought herself a full set of butcher's knives, beautiful, sharp, expensive blades, and she took them home, and she hung them on the wall, right above her bed. She said she wanted them there, just in case anything ever happened. Now, enter David. David Kellett, a co-worker, a heavy drinker, the kind of guy who was always one wrong word away from a fist fight. And when he'd get into it with somebody, Catherine would jump right in and back him up with her own two hands. But it didn't take him long to figure out the truth. He wasn't protecting her. She was the dangerous one. She dominated him, completely. In 1974, she talked him into marrying her. And at the wedding, her own mother pulled David aside. And what she told him, you don't forget. You better watch this one, she said. Stir her up the wrong way, and she'll kill you. I mean it. She's got a screw loose somewhere. That was her mother talking. About her own daughter, on her wedding day. David should have run. That very night, their wedding night, David made a mistake. After they were together, he fell asleep. He woke up with her hands around his throat, squeezing. She was strangling him, because he'd fallen asleep too soon. And that was just the opening act. The marriage was violent in a way that's hard to even describe. One night David came home late. He'd been out at a darts tournament. He'd made it all the way to the finals. And for that, Catherine burned every piece of clothing he owned, every shoe. And then she took a frying pan and cracked him across the back of the skull with it. He barely made it out. He stumbled to a neighbor's house and collapsed at the door. The doctors treated him for a fractured skull. The police wanted to charge her. But Catherine? She flipped a switch. Suddenly, she was sweet, calm, loving. And she talked David right out of pressing charges. There was another night he'd never forget. He woke up, and she was sitting on his chest, in the dark, holding one of those butcher's knives to his throat. And she just laughed, told him how easy it would be, how simple. In May of 1976, they had their first daughter, Melissa Ann. And that was the breaking point for David. He couldn't take it anymore. He left her for another woman, and he ran all the way to Queensland. Catherine came apart. The next day, neighbors saw her shoving the baby's pram down the main street, whipping it violently from side to side. She was admitted to a hospital, diagnosed with postnatal depression. She spent weeks there. And then they let her out. What she did next is the part that people can't get their heads around. She took her daughter, 2 months old, and she carried her down to the railway tracks. And she laid that baby down, right in the middle of the line. A train was coming. Then she walked off, stole an axe, and roamed into town threatening to kill anyone who crossed her path. The baby stayed on those tracks, alone. And it was pure luck, that a homeless man everybody in the district called Old Ted was out foraging near the line. He found the baby. He scooped her up off the tracks, minutes before the train came through. But Catherine wasn't finished. She slashed a woman across the face with a butcher knife and forced her to drive. She wanted to get to Queensland, to find David. The woman managed to escape when they stopped at a service station. So Catherine grabbed a young boy instead, took him hostage, held the knife on him. The police finally cornered her, and the only way they could disarm her was with brooms. They knocked the knife out of her hands and hauled her off to a psychiatric hospital. And there she told the nurses her plan, all of it. She was going to kill the mechanic at that service station, because he was the one who'd repaired David's car. He was the reason David got away, so he had to die first. And then, she was going to Queensland to kill David and his mother. Eventually, David heard what happened, and unbelievably, he came back. They patched it together for a while. They had a second daughter, Natasha, in 1980. And in 1984, Catherine finally left him. David Kellett survived her. Not everyone would be so lucky. Because then came David Saunders. A minor. He moved in with Catherine and her girls. But he made one crucial decision. He kept his own old apartment. He didn't give it up. And that drove Catherine into a jealous rage. In her mind, that apartment could only mean one thing. He was keeping it to cheat on her. So she decided to send him a message, a warning. Saunders had a puppy, a 2-month-old dingo pup. And one day, right in front of him, Catherine took a knife, and she cut its throat. She wanted him to understand, clearly, what would happen to him if he ever stepped out of line. Then she knocked him out cold with a frying pan. They had a daughter together, Sarah, in 1988, and Catherine turned their home into something out of a nightmare. Animal skins, skulls, horns, rusty traps, machetes and pitchforks. There wasn't a bare wall left in the place, not even the ceilings. Then, after one more fight, she hit Saunders in the face with an iron and drove a pair of scissors into his stomach. That was it for him. He ran, and when he came back later for his things, he found she'd shredded every piece of clothing he owned. After Saunders came another man, John Chillingworth. They had a son together, Eric. And then came the last one, John Price. Everyone called him Pricey. Another local man, hard-working, well-liked, and Catherine set her sights on him. But Pricey knew things. He'd heard the stories. He'd seen the pattern. And still somehow, he got pulled in, the way all of them did. The relationship turned, same as always. The jealousy, the control, the rage, and it kept escalating, until one day she stabbed him in the chest. That was Pricey's line. He'd had enough. He threw her out of his house. And on February 28th, on his way to work, he stopped at the courthouse in Scone. He took out a restraining order, trying to keep her away from him and away from his kids. That same afternoon, he sat with his coworkers, and he said something none of them would ever forget. "If I don't show up for work tomorrow," he told them, "it's because Catherine's killed me." They begged him not to go home, but Pricey shook his head. He said he was afraid that if he didn't go back, she'd hurt his children instead. So he went home. That night, Catherine had already sent his kids away, off to a sleepover. Pricey spent the evening with his neighbors, and around 11, he went to bed. That's when she came for him. She had a butcher's knife, and she started in the bedroom while he was lying down. He woke up. He fought to get away. Bleeding, he scrambled out of the bed, down the hall, trying to reach the front door. She chased him, stabbing him in the back, over and over. He made it to the door. He even got it open. He made it outside. But he was dragged back in. And he died there in the hallway, in a pool of his own blood. 37 stab wounds. And then, Catherine went to work, the work she was so good at. She skinned him, head to toe, and she hung his skin on a meat hook, a hook she had recently installed on the wall. She cut off his head, and she put it in a pot, with potatoes and pumpkin and beetroot and zucchini and cabbage and squash and gravy, and she let it cook. She baked pieces of his body. And she set the table, plates laid out, a name written beside each one, the names of his children. She was going to serve them their own father. She fixed herself a plate too. She sat down, and she ate, though she couldn't finish it. Then she swallowed a fistful of pills, lay down near what was left of him, and passed out. That's the pot. That's the smell the neighbors caught drifting down the street. That's what was really cooking. The next morning, Pricey didn't show up for work. And his coworkers went cold, because they remembered exactly what he'd told them. They called his house. No answer. They called again. Nothing. So they went to the police. "We've got a mate," they said. "And he told us, flat out, that if he ever didn't turn up for work, it'd be because Catherine killed him. He was scared of her. He asked us to report it, and now he's not here." The police went to the house. They knocked. No answer. They broke in through the back. And they walked into the worst thing any of them had ever seen. Pricey, skinned, decapitated, hung on that hook, his head in the pot, the plates on the table with the children's names beside them. And Catherine, on the floor, out cold from the pills. When they finally brought her around, she looked up at them and played dumb. "What happened?" she asked. "I don't know anything. I was unconscious." They arrested her. And when they pulled her history, the whole pattern came pouring out. The baby on the railway tracks, the scissors, the frying pan, the threats, the years and years of warnings that everybody saw, and nobody could stop. In court, when a witness described the skinning and the decapitation out loud, Catherine broke down completely, screaming, hysterical, and had to be sedated to stay in the room. She pleaded guilty. She never once explained why, and even after admitting it, she kept insisting she wasn't responsible for any of it. The judge, Justice O'Keefe, called it what it was, and he handed down a sentence that had never been given to a woman in Australian history. Life in prison, no parole, ever. Her file was stamped with 3 words: never to be released. She appealed years later. The court threw it out. And to this day, Catherine Knight is still behind bars, still locked away, still exactly where they said she would stay. Forever.